Okay, I have not been reading aloud ever, so it should be fun. So, Norwegian Brony meetup, fanfic, reading. Yes, jack off. Anyway, okay, let's see the start. Money. That's what it always comes down to. Money. The quiet rural atmosphere of Dodge Junction was a world away from the terrifying hustle and bustle of Canterlot. The events of the equestrian rodeo competition still sent pangs of shame through Applejack's heart. Every time she closed her eyes, she could see a pony laughing at her, another looking at her with pity or disgust for her failure. She had let herself down, and without any of the promised prize money, she had let Ponyville down. At least in this obscure western town, no pony would ever know of her failure, and perhaps she could make good on her word. No pony would know, that is, except for Cherry Jubilee. She had met the charismatic, classy pony at the rodeo, and instantly struck up a rapport. Cherry had seemed fascinated by Applejack. She had spent long nights at the bar, listening to stories about life in Ponyville. She had cheered Applejack on in every contest, and at the end, when Applejack was at her lowest ebb, she had made her an offer she couldn't refuse. Cherry Jubilee's place of business was the one bright spot in all of Dodge Junction. A huge flamboyant palace of a dwelling, the outside covered in a dazzling array of feathers and lanterns and streamers. But this was nothing compared to the inside. The walls were black and red, tastefully festooned with objects darts from every corner of Equestria. Upon entering, Applejack had noticed some sort of zebra sculpture, an array of strange masks, and even what she hoped was a ceremonial whip proudly mounted above the fireplace. Applejack may have been the country pony all her life, but she wasn't stupid. She knew what Cherry Jubilee did without even having to ask. She knew what she meant when she complimented her bucking technique with a wink. And even if she didn't know all that, the large shrine reading Cherry Jubilee's House of Ill Repute, proudly emblazoned above the entrance, gave the game away. Now there, Cherry smiled, and Applejack gave a nod. I know this is a bit scary, but hear me out. I don't think I need to tell you what goes on here, but every pony who works here has a lot of safe fun, and it's easy to make money. Very easy. She gave another wink of her luscious eyelashes. Clients pay up to 100 bits a session, you know. Most of that goes to me for the upkeep, but you can easily make 200 bits a week. Something went dry inside Applejack's throat. 200 bits? She had only intended to follow Cherry to the Dodge Junction for a short break while she cleared her head, but 200 bits? She could make more than enough to fix the town hall roof in a matter of weeks. In 2 months she could earn enough to buy a new barn for the Apple family. She could send Applebloom to college instead of enrolling her on a fake apple bucking diploma on the farm like she'd planned. I don't know, it ain't... She found her voice returning as she stammered, her wide eyes darting about the room. She now realized it was a lavish reception area, comfy couches dotted about with various doors leading down a long corridor. It was immaculate, a world away from the messy, if carefree life she had at Sweet Apple Acres. I can see you're unsure, Cherry smiled. Why don't you meet some of the girls? Then she called down the corridor. Girls, I have someone for you to meet. If you're not busy, that is. She gave another cheeky wink to Applejack, and Applejack blushed. Soon, several ponies trotted down the corridor towards her, all of them as immaculate and resplendent as the decor, each of them smiling and curtsying at Applejack. Lime Green Pegasus was the first to speak. Hi, I'm Cream Pie. I enjoy sticky fillings. A tall, bespectacled unicorn grinned at Applejack. I'm Happy Endings, and I'm good at giving clients happy endings. And I'm Vinegar Stroke, spoken up a rather excitable earth pony. And I'm really talented with my hooves. Pick me, pick me. Cherry Jubilee just gave a tinkling laugh and shook her head. No, no, girls, Applejack isn't a client. She's thinking about working here. She turned to Applejack. We're one big happy family here, Applejack, and I really think you'd fit in. You'll make lots of money for your family, and you'll have a great time doing it. Her eyes sparkled with a mischievous twinkle. Mischievous. Your performance at the rodeo was magnificent. Such stamina. 200 bits a week just for giving ponies some good hard rides, if you know what I mean. What do you say? Applejack's mouth went dry again. 200 bits. It was so easy. And out here in Dodge Junction, miles from Ponyville, no pony she knew would ever have to know. Before her brain registered it, her mouth opened to reply, I agree. Applejack rolled on her bed and stared up at the ceiling. She was still unsure whether she could go through with what she had to do, but the lure of 200 bits a week was too strong. Slowly, she sunk back into the covers. Her bed was soft and downy, perhaps the nicest thing she'd ever have to sleep on, or do other things on. The room Cherry had given her was small but beautiful, with a cupboard at the far end containing a huge variety of costumes and other items. Shelves that dotted the room were full of knickknacks that she barely recognized, and a large full-length mirror dominated the far side. Cherry had explained that this was the only room available at the moment, but if she did a good job, she could work her way up to more luxurious accommodation. To Applejack, though, this was already the height of decadent luxury. She furrowed her brow. She could do this. She could. Oops. She had to, for Ponyville's sake. Just lie back and think of Ponyville. There were voices in the corridor outside. Nervously, she looked at the clock. The hand had just passed 6. Hours of business had begun. She started to feel herself sweat, her heart pounding as she took a deep breath. She tried to rationalize this. She knew plenty of ponies in Ponyville who put themselves about, and for no financial recompense. In some ways, this was the best of both worlds, being paid for something that was enjoyable. The sound she was dreading came. A polite knock on the door. Cherry said, peeping in. Applejack, your first client's here. She smiled sweetly, opening the door to welcome a rather nervous-looking stallion. Enjoy yourselves. Applejack tried to lounge back on the bed seductively, but she soon realized that her twisting made it look like she had bed bugs, so she stopped and looked the newcomer over. He wasn't much to look at, not the sort of strapping stallion that turned her head in Ponyville. No, this was a gangly purple unicorn with a soft, scruffy brown mane, and a pair of oversized spectacles balanced precariously on his nose. There was also an attempt at some sort of tufty beard. Applejack made a mental note to avoid looking at that. The pony coughed nervously, his eyes wandering about the room, everywhere but at Applejack. Hi, he stammered out. My name is Crown Garen. I paid for an hour, and maybe we could... He gave another gulp, and looked at the nearby shelf. Ludo? He offered. Applejack gave a huge sigh. She thought her first time as a paid pony of leisure would be traumatic, but she had imagined that the trauma would be hers. She patted the mattress with her hoof. Come here, she barked out. No need to be all shy. The quivering wreck of a pony nodded quickly, clumsily pulling down a Ludo box from a nearby shelf. It split open, scattering playing pieces everywhere. Oh dear, he helped, sitting down on the bed hard. I thought we could first play Ludo, and then maybe... With a shake of her head, Applejack grimaced. Don't make it more painful than it has to be. I know what you want. She scooted over to the pony, placing a hoof around his shoulders and slowly lowering him onto his back. It felt good to be in control. You just let Auntie Applejack take good care of you. Crown Gare gave a whimper and froze up like a rabbit in the headlamps of a runaway cart, covering up his belly with his hooves as Applejack loomed over him. For Pete's sake, she muttered, slowly coaxing his sled apart. Come on, I won't hurt you. Her bravado was slowed as she saw his member poking from between his legs, sharply bringing her back to the reality of what she was doing. It's just like bobbing apples, she said to herself, as she paused over it, her breathing ragged now, before popping her head over the flaccid organ and sucking. It was nothing she hadn't done before, but somehow different with a stranger, more exciting. Slowly, her tongue curled around the appendage as she coaxed it to its full length in her mouth, one hoof running over the pony's balls, the other holding her hat on as she moved up and down. Finally, she popped her mouth up triumphantly to see it saluting her like a fresh carrot. A fresh, tiny baby carrot. Crown Gare's head was lolling to one side, his eyes wide and goggling. A small amount of drool escaped from his mouth onto her clean sheets. He looked up at her nervously. It's not too... No, Applejack lied. It's perfectly average. Seeing that the pony wasn't going to help her in any way, she hefted her weight over her new lover and sunk herself down, feeling a slight twinge as his member penetrated her. And now, she winked at the pale pony, now I'm gonna ride you. Hard. Oh, okay. 1.5 minutes later, Groundgear lay panting for his life on the bed while Applejack sat up, tidying her hair a bit. That was fun, wasn't it? She smiled triumphantly down at him, looking at the clock. You didn't want more, did you? Groundgear just shook his head, trying to sit up, but falling back down again in a state of disorientation. No, he croaked. Applejack shrugged at the exhausted pony. Ah well, and you still have 55 minutes left, she shrugged, looking at the clock. I guess we better play Ludo after all. Inwardly, she congratulated herself on her cleverness. This was going to be a piece of cake. Applejack was on top of the world. The previous night she had seen 4 ponies, and each of them had gone away barely able to walk in a straight line. Not only had Cherry Jubilee told her that they were the happiest customers she'd ever seen, but by bucking their brains out, she worked out that she only had to sell her body for 15 minutes that entire evening. The rest of the time was spent playing board games or making jigsaws with the chased ponies. She almost felt guilty of how easy it was. Almost. The other ponies in the building seemed nice enough, but Applejack had tried to avoid talking to them as much as possible. After all, she was only doing this to get money for her family and friends. She didn't want to have to associate with ponies who did this job out of choice. Instead, she spent the next day wandering about the slowly sleepy town and taking in the sights. There weren't that many of them. Soon, 6 o'clock came round again, and Applejack found herself waiting in her room, feeling strangely excited for the evening that was to follow. You sly pony, she winked at the reflection in the mirror, admiring her physique that had lain waste to so many ponies the night before. It was practically cheating. A knock came on the door again, and Cherry's head poked around. This time she was alone, but carrying a bundle of clothing in her hooves. Ah, Applejack, she chirped. I've got someone for you who wants you to dress up. I trust that's not a problem. No, ma'am, Applejack promptly replied, taking the bundle gratefully. I'm always up for a challenge. As Cherry closed the door, Applejack unfurled the material curiously. It was some sort of spandex, stretching slightly when she tugged at it. Grunting and struggling, she squeezed all 4 hooves into the material, then slipped the hood over her head. Twisting and turning to make herself comfortable, she wandered over to the mirror to see what she was dressed as. Well, I'll be, she explained. She was clad in a tight blue uniform, with a familiar lightning bolt logo emblazoned on the sides. Her mane poofed out from the hole cut in the top, and she struggled to make it look slightly more presentable. Her green eyes peered out from a hole in the material, and then alighted on a pair of goggles that Cherry had left lying by the door. She put them on. She was unmistakably a Wonderbolt. Not quite, though. There was an obvious slit on either side of the costume for wings. She had considered this for a moment, and then looked into the wardrobe. Sure enough, there was a pair of discarded novelty wings lying in the back of a box stored there. They were yellow, but she was sure they would do. Putting them on, she looked back at herself in the mirror, and couldn't resist striking a pose. Boy howdy, she explained. I never thought I'd be wearing one of these. I wonder what crazy stallion I'm gonna meet. Applejack the Wonderbolt. If only Rainbow Dash could see me now. She froze in horror as she heard a familiar voice from the other side of the door. Hey Fenris, do you want to read her lines? You can do that.
Where? This is going to be awesome!
It squeaked. 10 minutes ago, Rainbow Dash sat opposite Cherry Jubilee outside the hallway, twiddling her thumbs as she looked awkwardly about the luxurious waiting room. Thank you, Miss Dash, Cherry paused, writing a note in the logbook she had opened in front of her. I'm sure there are many ponies here who can meet your needs, and dressing up is all part of the service. Don't worry about it. Rainbow Dash wiped her forehead.
Phew! I thought you'd think I was weird. Oh, I'm sure you only have mares here, and that's fine. I'm sure I'll cope.
She was cut off by Cherry. No, there's a strapping young stallion who's free, and a Pegasus too. Rainbow Dash looked slightly shifty.
I mean that I know stallions cost more, and I don't have that many bits to my name, so...
She pushed a pile of bits towards Cherry Jubilee.
Give me your lowest priced mare for an hour. Cheapest you've got.
Applejack stood motionless in shock as the door closed and Rainbow Dash bounced into the room, her face agoggle in delight at Applejack's appearance.
Oh my gosh!
She squealed excitedly.
I can't believe I'm doing this.
Panic welled up in the pit of Applejack's stomach. Rainbow Dash obviously hadn't recognized her in the body-encompassing Wonderbolt costume, but surely it wouldn't take long for her friend to realize who it was, and then her reputation would be ruined. The reality of where she was and what she was doing hit home like a brick wall, and she giddily staggered to the bed and sat down. "So, Rainbow Dash," she said in a deep voice, hoping against desperate hope that she could disguise her speech, "what would you like to do?"
Well, you're Spitfire, and I...
Rainbow Dash trailed off, suspiciously peering into Applejack's goggles.
I didn't tell you my name. How did you know?
Oh, well. Applejack's mind raced to find a suitable answer. "Well, of course, you're Rainbow Dash, the young flyer of the year, the most famous pony out of Ponyville." Rainbow Dash just beamed, puffing out her chest.
Well, I am rather famous, aren't I?
She boasted modestly.
I can do a sonic rain boom, you know, anytime I want. I just don't feel like it right now.
Her eyes flashed with excitement as she looked about the room.
Right, you stand here and tell me how wonderful I am and how you are letting me join the Wonderbolts.
She shifted slightly, waiting to take in the praise, and then her eyebrows twitched again.
Wait a minute, Spitfire doesn't wear a Stetson hat.
"Oh, really?" Applejack coughed loudly, quickly whipping her hat off. "Sorry, Miss Dash. For some reason I thought she did." Deciding she needed to quickly regain the initiative, she pulled Rainbow Dash forward to sit on the corner of the bed. "Now you just sit here and I'll tell you about how you're the best flower in Equestria."
Oh yes, Spitfire, yes.
Rainbow Dash squealed as she sat on the edge of the bed, bouncing up and down like a small filly on heartwarming eve. She turned her head to look dreaming into Applejack's goggles. "Well," Applejack stammered, "I guess I saw you flying and you flapped your wings real nice. So I guess you can join the Wonderbolts."
Yes.
Rainbow Dash punched a hoof into the air.
This is brilliant.
Applejack died a bit inside. The clock was ticking painfully slowly, each movement of the second hand seeming to last an eternity. If Dash thought for one moment that it was Applejack in the Wonderbolt uniform, her life would be over. Finished. There was only one option. She had to make sure Dash was suitably exhausted enough not to notice that it was her friend providing the services. Applejack was a traditional Earth pony from a traditional family. She wasn't particularly into mares, though she didn't begrudge those who were. It just wasn't something that had ever interested her. Rainbow Dash hadn't particularly interested her either. She was a good friend, but that was all. The idea of having to make love to her filled her with cold, hard dread, but she knew that the future of Ponyville depended on her keeping this job. Her reputation depended on her being undiscovered. In short, she had no choice. Slowly, she wrapped one hoof around Rainbow Dash's shoulders and drew her in closer. Rainbow Dash seemed giddy with excitement, pumping her hooves up and down as Applejack drew her closer. "In fact," Applejack whispered into Rainbow Dash's ear, "I think you should take me on a ride."
Anything you say, Spitfire.
Rainbow Dash croaked out, looking up at the ceiling.
I guess we can fly around the ceiling and...
Her eyes went wide as Applejack traced her tongue over her left-hand wing. "Such a strong wing," Applejack murmured as sultry as she could manage, licking up and down the shape of each feather. "I'd like to see them all stiffen into tension. With a squeak from Rainbow Dash, she felt the blue pony's wings stretch out. One hoof started to run over them, and the other was placed squarely on Rainbow Dash's chest, pushing her firmly onto the bed.
I can't show you with a flare. I am
From here, Rainbow Dash uttered, as Applejack loomed over her, straddling her firmly and grinding softly against her pelvis. "You can show me how good you are, though." Applejack slowly lowered her body onto Rainbow Dash's, pinning her friend down as she slowly and gently dry-humped her. "After all," she nibbled at Rainbow Dash's neck, "you are the best young flower in Equestria, and I might have to make you my..."
Vice Captain?
Rainbow Dash gasped out, her wings flapping feebly on the bed cover with every administration of Applejack's mouth. "Oh, sure. Or... maybe." Applejack ran a hoof down Rainbow Dash's side, rubbing her cloth-covered cheek against Dash's, her mouth whispering into her ear. Maybe you can be my captain.
Oh, Spitfire.
Rainbow Dash was quivering now, biting her bottom lip hard.
Oh, touch my cutie mark.
Applejack raised an eyebrow and gently stroked the symbol on Rainbow Dash's flank. Rainbow Dash gave a little moan, taking the hint. Applejack started to kiss down Rainbow Dash's chest slowly. She made her way to her right-hand flank, licking and kissing her cutie mark. Dash's voice rising higher and higher in the warbling moan.
Tell me you'll make it the new Wonderbolt logo.
Rainbow Dash cried.
Or my face. That can be the new logo, and...
Her cries will thankfully call off as Applejack bit the bullet and dove her face between Rainbow Dash's legs, lapping away. Rainbow Dash started to twitch uncontrollably, going into almost immediate spasms at the merest touch of Applejack's tongue.
Oh, Spitfire.
She squeaked.
I've always dreamed of this. I saved myself for you, Spitfire. I'm your little Dashy. Call me Dashy. We can fly together every night and live in my cloud house. Oh, Spitfire.
Applejack rolled her eyes as Rainbow Dash's rather pathetic display, being even more glad at the moment that the mask that covered her expression. Determined to get the deed over and done with, she started to lick deeper, feeling Dash's thick scent permeate her tongue, almost overwhelming her with how wet her friend had become so quickly.
I have a little plushie of you that I keep, that I sleep with at all night.
Rainbow Dash wailed.
And sometimes I squeeze it between my...
Thankfully, the next mind-shattering revelation was cut off as she gave an orgasmic wail, grinding her hips hard into Applejack's face as she came, her limbs flailing about wildly in an intense, spasmodic explosion. Finally, she rolled over panting, tears streaming down her face as she collapsed into Applejack's hooves.
Thank you, Spitfire.
She wept.
Thank you.
Applejack's eyes twitched. She'd never felt the need to scrub herself clean as strongly as she did now. There, Dashy, she managed, bustling Rainbow Dash to the door. The clock still showed 10 minutes to go, but she was sure in the current state, Dash wouldn't notice. Come again. She pushed Rainbow Dash out the door, the blue pony toppling straight into the hallway to land on the floor with a thick, hard thud. Slamming the door shut, she locked it, leant against it hard, trying to spit the taste of Rainbow Dash out of her mouth. Ugh, she muttered. That was horrible. Who'd have thought Dash would be all the way out here? She slowly sunk to the floor, closing her eyes for a blissful rest, hoping to drive the images of Rainbow Dash's twitching body from her mind. They flew open again with the sound of more voices outside. It really is kind of you to accommodate the Ponyville annual coach trip, Miss Jubilee. You have excellent facilities here. Do you mind if my dragon comes in with me to watch? Applejack's hoof flew to her mouth. It was twilight, and all of Ponyville by the sounds of it. She started to think that she could leave the door locked, pretend she was ill. She could find an excuse to leave the Wonderbolt costume on. She heard Cheerilee's voice echo from the corridor. That'll be extra, Miss Sparkle. Oh yes, I see. Well, we have a new mare who's just started with us. She's cheap and will accommodate your needs, but you'll have to wait your turn. This stallion's next in line. Yup. Applejack lifted her hooves and almost shot across the room in wide-eyed shock. It was the unmistakable voice of her brother. She shouldn't. Either way, she was doomed. There was a knocking on the door. The voice of Cherry asking her to open up for a lovely young stallion, the end of her reputation. Gulping down heavy breaths, Applejack came to a decision. She flung open the door and pushed herself out into the hallway, still clad head to toe in the Wonderbolt costume. Actually, it should be head to hoof, shouldn't it? Which was now looking rather worse for the wear. Cherry looked slightly annoyed at this display, but this was nothing to show how Applejack felt. In the waiting room, there was not only Twilight, not only Big Mac, not only exhausted-looking Rainbow Dash, but what looked like half of Ponyville, all waiting patiently. Pinkie Pie, Bon Bon, even little Scootaloo, who was clutching a rainbow-coloured wig in her mouth. Applejack took in the scene, her jaw slack as she turned from Cheerilee to the townfolks in front of her. Just what's wrong with you all? She wailed in despair at the crowd. I can't do it. I tried. I couldn't win the money at the rodeo, so I thought I'd have to come here and sell my body for bits. And I thought no pony would know. But now every pony will know, 'cause I can't do it. I can't keep having sex with every pony who wants me. She tore off her mask to reveal her rather flustered face. A gasp went up across the room with a shocked chorus of Applejack! Rainbow Dash looked up.
Applejack? How long have you been Spitfire?
She gaped. Applejack sighed shamefacedly, turning from her friends to Cherry Jubilee. I'm sorry, Miss Jubilee, she said slowly. I really thought I could just sell myself, but I couldn't. Cherry just stood staring at Applejack. An uncomfortable silence descended as no one in the room seemed to want to speak. Finally she replied, What? As she uttered simply, her voice betraying a slight angry tremble. Some of the other doors in the corridor had opened, and the other workers had popped their head out to see what the commotion was. Applejack tugged at the collar of her costume. I ain't cut out for working in no brothel. I'm sorry, you've been so good to me. Applejack, Cherry's reply was short and curt, her speech quivering slightly as she twitched. Applejack, this isn't the brothel. I make confectionery and cream cakes, Cream Pie cried from her room, waving a half-full icing dispenser out the door. I help ponies come up with endings to their stories, Happy Endings said, her hooves full of manuscripts. And I do pottery, Vinegar Strokes chirped from her doorway. And cookery, I multitask. Cherry Jubilee narrowed her eyes at Applejack. Applejack, have you been bringing my house of ill repute into ill repute? But... Applejack's voice quivered as she looked around the room at the shocked faces of all the ponies present, and then down at her own Wonderbolt costume, which smelt of Rainbow Dash. But you said you wanted me to give ponies a good hard ride? Pony rides! Pony rides! Not sex! Cherry Jubilee looked like she was having a stroke. You let them sit on you, and you trot up and down, and it's all lovely fun. That's what we do here. We entertain, play games, have fun. Not this. Oh. Applejack looked down at the floor, mulling over the implications of what Cherry just said. Then she looked up. Oh, well that sounds easy. Can I? No. Oh. Applejack sucked in her cheeks, feeling the harsh glares from Cherry and her family and friends. Well, this is awkward. The silence stretched on for what seemed like forever. It was Rainbow Dash who broke the tension, trotting over to Applejack. Applejack breathed in, waiting for the trial of insults to begin. But it never came. Instead, she stood in front of her, almost protectively.
Look, every pony.
Rainbow Dash began, looking between her shocked friends and Cherry Jubilee. Applejack's not a bad pony. She's just a pony who made a few mistakes. She didn't mean to do anything wrong. She just wanted to help her friends. Oh wait, this is actually your line.
Yeah.
Whoops.
So don't judge her, every pony. Cherry Jubilee, think twice before firing her.
She gave a small cough.
I still got 10 minutes left on my account.
The end. That's a good fanfic. Hope people enjoyed that.